Okay, we have begun recording this session. It's about 11:02. This is a Building and Protecting Your Net Worth. This is a financial planning and investment webinar series, session 4 on retirement planning. We have worked on other, we have worked on other sessions and series as well over the past few months, including investment planning and cash and debt management, and then just one that was a general overview. For today, we're going to be highlighting our conversations on retirement planning. We will be doing a Q&A at the end of this webinar. We'll stop recording and we will begin a Q&A at the end for anybody who may have a handful of questions for us. So let me just get started here. Let me just close this. So first off, summary for success, and we brought this up on every single webinar that we've had. There's 5 keys of financial success: honest assessment of your current situation, establishing reasonable goals, discipline, accountability to both yourself and us holding you accountable, you holding us accountable, review of your progress and making appropriate adjustments. All very important. The goal for our series: increase in awareness of the purpose of financial planning. I think sometimes financial planning gets lost in investment planning, but without financial planning, investment planning, is only a small part. Educate in the key areas of financial planning, and perhaps most importantly is encouraging individuals to take action and follow up on the key areas. In any area of financial planning, it's important that you don't stick your head in the sand per se and just ignore a situation. It's important that you take action on those areas that require attention. Most people, in terms of retirement planning, most people spend more time planning a single vacation than they do planning a 30-year retirement. I know that sounds like it's kind of funny, but it really ends up being true. Most people get to 62, 60, 63 and say, hey, I'm going to retire in a couple of years. What do I need to do? The reality is retirement planning takes a much more time than that and a little bit more dedication to it, and that's what we're going to talk about today. The 2 greatest fears for retirees are these 2 items: not maintaining their desired lifestyle and running out of money. I think most people are aware that they don't want to run out of money. However, the secondary one, maybe even the most important, depends on the individual, is they want to maintain their desired lifestyle. So for example, if you're living and you're enjoying your lifestyle at $150,000 per year, your goal is to maintain that lifestyle of $150,000 a year. The challenge is going to be a combination of Social Security, any pensions, small job, retirement savings. How does that all put together so you can enjoy the retirement that you believe you deserve? And we're going to chat about this today, but this has been a big issue. I think for a lot of people, they won't run out of money. Okay, a lot of people will not run out of money for a variety of reasons, but the reality is many people are simply not saving enough to maintain their desired lifestyle. So a quick example would be if you want to live on $150,000 per year, but your Social Security and savings only accounts for $75,000, well, you have to cut your desired lifestyle in half. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but that's what we're finding, and we're going to talk about some of the issues out there in the retirement planning community, if you will, and the quote crisis that's out there. The crisis is not people running out of money as much as it is they're not able to maintain a desired lifestyle. Reasons why people make retirement or retirement planning harder than it needs to be: living beyond their means while working, excess debt, credit cards, spending above and beyond what you're bringing in. They don't start saving early enough. This is probably the 1 or 2 of the biggest factors. If you start saving at 20, it's infinitely easier to retire on time with the money you need than if you start saving at 60, for obvious reasons. You've got simply 40 years. Time value of money is on your side tremendously. People just don't start saving early enough. Our 401k participants we work with, we never have anybody say, I wish I started saving later. They always want to say they started saving earlier and more. Don't maximize savings while working. This coincides a little bit with living beyond their means. Overspending during retirement. If you have a budgetary goal, which is next section, which next bullet, pardon me, is not able to maintain a budget. If your budget's $100,000 or $150,000 in retirement, and you're blowing through this budget, and you're spending $20,000, $25,000 more, you're simply going to burn out some funds. You're going to have to reduce your lifestyle on the back end. So because you're not earning income anymore, which is true for most people, or at least a significant income, some people do a part-time job, if you will, you're not bringing in the W-2, so the adherence to a budget is even more critical in retirement. That's not that saying that you don't have to adhere to a budget while you're working. You really should be paying yourself first, then living on the rest, okay? Setting unrealistic retirement income goals. This is a big part of the retirement planning process. When people come to work with us, we really want to hone down on this number. Obviously, if you want to live on $400,000 a year in retirement but only saved $1 million, the math's not that hard to figure out. That money's only going to last 2.5 years, then what are you going to do? So you have to set a realistic retirement goal for income, and this does come down to some significant planning for some people, which is maximizing savings, paying down debt, getting yourself on the right track. No Social Security planning. Social Security is not as straightforward as people think of just wait till I'm 65, 66 and start taking my check. We really want to see our clients do a Social Security analysis. It does not take that long. It's not that difficult, but it really gives an insight as to what is the best time to take your Social Security. Now, for many people, it is right around their normal retirement age. Some people, maybe it's a year earlier. For some people, maybe you take a little bit later. But it's not as straightforward, number one, on Social Security. Number two, people forget that your Medicare premiums do come out of Social Security. So, yes, it's, for example, getting $30,000 per year, but you have to factor in some other health care costs as well. We talk about that with our clients. Too much debt at or in retirement. Some debt is okay. Too much debt is bad. When you have too much debt in retirement, that money is going to pay down debt, not going to do the things that you want to do. And we're seeing a larger number of people come meet with us initially and want to start working with us, and our clients as well, who are liquidating or selling secondary investments like a condo, a townhome, and a vacation place, or they're downsizing their current residence from 4,000 square feet to 2,000 square feet to reduce their debt load. More people are renting, if you will, their experiences versus purchasing a condo on the beach. They'd rather not have that liability. They'd rather just go rent it for $3,000 or every couple of weeks and do that. And so they're trying to reduce their debt. They're finding that excess debt is really cutting into their retirement goals. The last one is part of the planning process. I think people need to focus on this, which is you just can't hope that retirement, well, hope, quote unquote, that retirement will, quote, work out. Sometimes people like to procrastinate, and they like to ignore some of the issues that are out there. It's like I make a joke, you have to go to the dentist, your teeth don't heal themselves. You really got to get in and get that fixed. People who are nearing retirement, and I'd say comfortably, we tell people all the time, with 10 years, 15 years, 10 years, really should have some numbers run because you still have time left. For those people who are 60, 62, rather than guess at what your retirement situation is or your retirement income, it's very important to work through the process and identify exactly what your retirement will look like so it's realistic. Because let's face it, people don't want to have to go back to work to either make sure they don't run out of money, but more likely they'll want to have to go back to work to maintain a lifestyle, okay? So we're going to come back to this page as well. Initial steps in the retirement planning process, we work through this with all of our clients, and this is a kind of a recurring situation here. List of all assets and liabilities, that's your net worth statement. Establish a tentative retirement planning age goal. For many people, this is 62, 65, 66, and it's important to have your numbers run so we can identify an appropriate age. Tentative means while you might want to do this at age 65, you may have to adjust this higher or lower. If you saved a significant amount of money, maybe to retire at 64. If you need to save a little bit more, maybe 66. We want to talk that out. Establish a tentative retirement income goal. Many people come to us and they say, Matt, I want to retire, or Mark or Bill, I want to retire on X thousands of dollars per year. Let's run the numbers to see how close we can get to that if we need to make adjustments. Again, gather Social Security estimates. Gather all other pension information if applicable. Want to have your list of retirement goals, travel, vacation, home. Like I mentioned before, many people are downsizing, but some are still interested in it. List of outstanding expenses in the near future, including a new car, roof. Let's get some of these sinking fund items, if you will, on the table, and also prepare a sample retirement budget. Let's find out exactly what your needs are in retirement. And I think, as you'll see in one example we give later, that when you have excess debt, that money is going towards debt, not going to doing things you want to do. General guidelines: annual draw from IRA retirement accounts historically should be between 3% and 6%. It's really 3% to 5%. Anything above that 6% plus, I'll give you some examples later. They can start digging into savings. Yes, the market's going up and everyone feels good about that, but I think most people on this call can remember 2008 and even more so 2001, 2001 and 2, where the equity markets, at least, U.S. were down for 3 years, and this is worse than almost 2008 because 2000 now rebounded. It's tough for those 3 years, but an annual draw, 3% to 6% is fair. Adhere to an investment policy statement. The situation here is you want to set a risk profile for yourself and want to stick to that profile, and that means setting an allocation that's risk-based that you're comfortable with. Meaning, if you're a half stock, half bond investor, 50-50, you want to adhere to that allocation over extended periods of time. You don't want to be making jumps around in the market from A to B and B to C because of market gyrations. You really want to set that and have a solid allocation for extended periods of time to maximize that rate of return. Focus on minimizing taxes. Many people have IRAs and investment accounts. We want to set a plan of distribution that makes sense from a tax, financial planning, and estate planning perspective. We have had people come in and say, hey, first thing we do, Matt, we just start hammering on that IRA. Maybe you have a taxable account that we want to start taking the money out of first. Maybe we do the IRAs first, but it's important to set up some sort of a schedule. And it's also important to understand what type of emergency funds you have as well to cover some of that area. Minimize debt. Sound like a broken record. Minimize debt. Downsides of consideration for many retirees. And again, as I said before, it's been a general pattern for this. So we've worked on 2 sample cases, Family A and Family B. These are completely hypothetical, and I'm going to work through a case with Family A and show you some numbers, and then subsequently a case with Family B and show you some numbers. So let's get started with this. Family A, married, age 62, 60 years to retirement. They make $200,000 per year annually. They save, overspend. They pay themselves first. 2 children, no grandchildren. The residence is $500,000. The mortgage is $50,000. The retirement assets currently are $1.6 million. They have a retirement income goal at 65 and 63 at $120,000 per year, so it's comfortable for them. Savings, cash, and outside investments, $300,000. Their current annual expenses, which isn't really relevant, for the calculation of retirement, is currently $110,000. No debt outside mortgage balance, Social Security start age 65, some basic details. So this is for Joe and Mary for Family A. Quickly, here's their net worth. This is a very simplistic net worth example, just for illustrations for this webinar. Their assets and liabilities, their net worth, is $2.3 million. Their Social Security is roughly $4,000 a month, both at age 65. Let's see how they do. So they're going to retire in 2021 at age 65 and 63. With growth and additional deposits, their account balance is roughly $2.3 million. I ran all the growth of the portfolio at 5%. We'll talk about that in a moment, at 5%. After Social Security, after Joe's Social Security, they only need $87,000 per year. So on the right-hand side, after year one, they start with $2.3 million. They made $115,000, which is 5%. Assumed withdrawals is $87,000. Ending balance $2.3 million. The assumed withdrawals grow at roughly 2.5%. At Joe's age of passing, they still have $2 million in the account. Their situation is a very good situation. They don't need to take any additional risk. If the market does 6%, for example, over the extended time period, they're going to be way ahead of the curve. So this 5% is a relatively average, 50-50, even maybe a 40-60 or 30-70 stock to bond allocation over long periods of time. So this situation for Joe and Mary, they don't have to worry about retirement. They have all their bills paid. They have relatively no debt, only the mortgage balance. They only need $87,000. They have $2.3 million. So their retirement, they can expect a very positive retirement. They even can dive into some of their investments and savings a little bit to pay for some extra things they may want to do for their kids, what have you, travel on and on and on. Now, if I ran this at 10%, obviously their retirement assets would be significantly greater, but I just wanted to use a basic 5% on this. Now, if we go to family hypothetical B, same age, they make $300,000 per year versus $200,000. They spend over save. Children's the same, but here's where it really gets different. We talk about debt and lack of savings over a period of time. Same residence value, $500,000. They have a first mortgage is $225,000, home equity of $100,000, so they owe about $3.25. Condo value is $175,000, mortgage is $150,000. They have outside debts, debts outside mortgage, pardon me. Credit cards, $17,000, cars, $35,000. Retirement assets, $950,000. They have a small loan against it. Retirement income goals, $65,000, $63,000. Big difference here. The $950,000, and they also have they're looking for $200,000 per year. Okay, they're looking for $200,000 per year in retirement income. Okay. Savings, cash, and outside investments, $50,000. Social Security, $65,000. They're saving roughly $24,000. Quickly, they have no will or trust. I mentioned very briefly on Family A that they have a will and trust. We're going to talk about this on our February estate planning call. So their situation, this is Stephen Shelley. It's going to hypothetically work through this. Their net worth is $1.123 million. Social Security is going to be exactly the same, $4,000 per month at age 65. How do they do? So their starting balance is roughly $1 million, get a little deposit and 5% growth. But at 2021, just like the first couple, Joe and Mary Stephen Shelley, they've amassed $1.23 million. They're only going to make $61,000. I'll get to this 5% next page in a moment. Their draw is $202,000. Their ending balance, this is because of inflation, some other factors, their ending balance is $1 million. For Stephen Shelley, because they require $200,000 per year, because they have all this extra debt, extra expenses, they didn't save enough, and they're relatively much higher compared to the first group retirement income need, their money runs out when he's 71 years old. And I know what somebody's going to say. He's going to say, you know what, Matt? That's because they're running it at 5%. We can do better than 5%. So what does it look like if we make a higher rate of return over that time period? How would they do then? They don't want to change their income goal. They have no interest in living on less than $200,000. They're just going to be stubborn. They really not going to save any more than this $24,000 for a couple years. How does it turn out? Well, here's the graph for this. If we invest and they make 10% per year, instead of running out at 71, he runs out at 75. Now they're in a situation where they have no more assets left at all. there's going to have to be a significant adjustment in a variety of areas. Number one, for those first few years, I'm going to get to why this even matters more for those people requiring more income when it comes to Social Security. For those people who trying to save, this savings area needs to be maximized and this income needs to be reduced. And it goes back to, trying to eliminate this level of debt, getting this out of here. And the reality is for Steve and Shelley, family B, in this example, they needed to have maximized savings between their 50s before they got to 62. So this balance, instead of being $950, and I'm just going to throw a number out. Let's pretend they maximized it and they said it was $2 million. Now the situation is much easier for them to retire or at least provide some additional relief in their retirement planning. Now I'm going to show you something that when they talk about, so let's go back to the 10%. So the bottom line is they would have, at 5%, they run out at 71. Even if they doubled their investment return, their money runs out at 75. For Steve and Shelley, this is some significant work that has to be done to make this work. Now I put together a couple simple calculators, and we use these on our webinars to just give basic illustrations. The crisis in retirement planning, okay, is not for the people at the lower end of the scale, of the income scale. The reason why is because Social Security at the lower side of the scale accounts for a much larger percentage of the income. Sounds confusing, but maybe, but let's look at this in math. If you have a desired retirement income of $50,000, and Social Security provides for $25,000, you have to make up a $25,000 gap. If you have let's make life easy, a $400,000 portfolio, and you're taking 5% off of that, that's 20 grand. So you're only short $5,000. This is an obtainable goal to make up a difference in a portfolio or portfolio work or what have you. When you are trying to have a larger retirement income, right? Let's take example B, pardon me. Let's just say you desire $175,000, and let's even double your Social Security benefit to $50,000. You now have to make up $125,000 a year in retirement between your portfolio and work. It's much more difficult to come up with a $125,000 difference versus a $25,000 difference. This is the retirement crisis that's out there. Not saying that it's, your lifestyle retirement, $50,000 is just not enough. We understand that, and that's living on $50,000 may not be a lot to a lot of people, and it can be difficult. But the greater, I wrote this down, the greater the desired income, the greater the need for saving more in pre-retirement. Simply said, that most people do not save enough money in pre-retirement to make up this gap in $125,000. Therefore, they need to reduce this $175,000, and I'm just going to punch it in. They need to reduce their lifestyle living, down to $100,000. Now they can make up the gap. This is the retirement crisis of people not saving enough. Now, a couple comments about that. I brought up on the cash and debt management webinar, which was something as simple as this. If you are making $200,000 per year, and this is not including employer, you should have a general goal of saving between 15 and 20% of $200,000. That doesn't mean you get there, but that's a goal. On $300,000, it's the same thing, but closer to the 20%. And on $400,000 per year, you really should be saving to meet this retirement goal desired. You really should be saving definitely that 20% to meet the goal. Yeah, this is not employer, so that would be, let's just make $300,000 is 60 grand. You put away $24,000 for your 401k, so you need to save an additional $36,000. That would be almost the minimum in order to start getting closer to this retirement goal, whether it's 175 or 150. Okay? This is a big factor. Another issue. Retirement income. I did this on the cash flow. It's the most simple retirement calculator created. It has assuming no interest or rate of return. This is not real life, but it gives some context to how long money will last, assuming there's no interest or rate of return, and you just left it underneath your mattress and pulled the money out. If you wanted 100,000, same example, each example is $1.2 million portfolio, you need 100 grand, no interest and no interest, it's going to last you 12 years. You'll run out of money at 77. If you need 200,000 out of the 1.2 million, it's going to last 6 years. You'll be back to work, what have you, at 71. But if you reduce your lifestyle all the way down to 65, it's going to last 18 and a half. Now, we obviously know you're going to make some interest or rate of return over this time period, but this gives some general context of how important this portfolio balance of 1.2 matters, okay? Another area of retirement planning concern, and I'm going to summarize this again. When you have adequate retirement plan savings, the need to take investment risk in retirement declines, and in many cases it declines significantly. Example, let's pick a number of $10 million and you have a $100,000 income need. Obviously this is infinite, right? But that means all you have to make per year is 1% on your money on $10 million to pay for your 100 grand. The money will last forever. Conversely, if you have $10 million and you have a $5 million your income need, money's going to last 2 years. So you need to take a super aggressive allocation to meet your income needs. You can pick other numbers. If you have $2 million in the bank and you want $50,000 per year, this is a 2.5% per year draw. Very easy retirement situation to meet. If you need $400,000 per year, you got to invest very aggressively. So the reason why people with a large retirement balance have it easier and a lower income need is for a couple reasons. Number one, they're drawing less money, no problem, but they don't have to take the risk. And I want to run an example here. Here's a sample 50-50 allocation. We're going to focus on this top chart here. If I have a $1.2 million portfolio, half is in equities, stocks, half is in fixed income bonds, and I have a 1-year return of 10%, I've made $660. So I made roughly 10%, that's $60,000. The fixed income, I've made $18,000. So at the end of year one, my portfolio in the 50-50 went from $1.2 million to $1.278. I made 6.5%. That's a 50-50 investor, okay? Now let's assume for a moment the market goes down 10%. I know people are thinking the market's never going to go down again, but let's look 10%. Under this scenario, I've lost 3.5%, okay? Now, to this calculator below, why does this matter? Because if the market goes down 10%, so it goes down 10, fixed income's up, I have to make back this 3.5%. How hard is it to make back this 3.5%? Well, if I started with 1.2 million, it dropped to 1.158 million, this example, I lost 3.5. My required rate of return to get back to par, back to square, is 3.63%. That's for the 50-50 investor. Now let's take an investor who did not save enough and wants to take extended risk because they have to make more in the marketplace. If the market goes down 10%, and this is a 75-25 allocation, so instead of 50-50, we're going to make this a 75-25, okay? This is an individual or family that has to take extra risk in the market because they didn't save enough. Now the market goes down 10%. Fixed income still, so they have 900,000 equities, pardon me, 300,000 fixed income. Now they lost 6.5%. What do I have to make back to break even? Now I have to make back 7.24%. I have to make back roughly 7.25% just to get back to square. And I'm drawing 5% off of this, making it even more difficult. One last example on this, and we're going to use someone that's super conservative, and we're going to flip the equation around, and we're going to use a 25-75 allocation. And this is for somebody who's amassed a significant amount of wealth. They don't need to take a significant amount of stock risk, but they still need to have some for inflation purposes. This is a remarkable figure. So let's say they make 10% equities. This is a positive year. They made, this is fascinating. They made $1.2 million portfolio, $300,000 in equities, $900,000 in fixed income. Equities go up 10%, bonds go up 3%. That portfolio made 4.75% in that one given year. What happens if the portfolio goes down 10%? This is unbelievable. This is how the math works. If they lost 10% in a 25-75 portfolio, they only lost 1/4%. They have to make back, what is actually 0.2, this is not actually barely over 0.25% to make it accurate. So if the individual who is, let's say, oversaved for retirement, they don't have to take hardly any equity risk to meet their goals. Or you need something to meet with inflation. We all understand that implicitly. So look at the difference here. So here's minus 0.25% versus you make 4.75%. So the individual in retirement who has to take more risk in retirement puts their retirement planning plans at more risk. Conversely, the person who saved more doesn't have to take the risk, and they've made their retirement, year-end retirement goals less risky. So what does this matter? You really need to save more prior to retirement and get that planning work done. So quickly, why Social Security matters, you got to make up a much larger gap. Retirement income, my joke is always the world's most simple retirement plan calculator created. Very simple, but it provides a clear illustration, and this allocation really matters. You want to take risk in the investment marketplace prior to retirement, moderate to low risk in retirement because you've saved enough. So going back to our charts and graphs. So the situation here is, let me get back to a few things here. How do we then get retirement planning back on track for most people? Let me get back, my apologies. Reasons why people are retirement hard, let's go one more time. Living beyond their means, you need to save more, simple. Don't start saving early enough. Don't put off retirement planning savings for one more day. Maximize your savings while you're working. So if you're making $400 or $350, you need to dig into that budget and how do you put away an extra $10,000, $20,000. Overspend during retirement, this same thing, sticking to a budget. Let's work together to set some realistic goals. I'll jump to the next page in a moment. Get your Social Security planning done. Let's minimize debt, and let's not focus on hoping that retirement will work out. Let's get some math done. So for those of you who are listening who are, there we go, I don't know why it's working. So steps in the retirement planning process. Let's get a net worth statement done, critical. Let's set a tentative retirement age goal. You know what you want to retire at, and you know what tentatively you want your income goal to be. Let us know what this is in coordination with your assets and liabilities, and we can work out a pretty straightforward calculation and have some good conversation. Let us know what your Social Security situation is. You can go into socialsecurity.gov, get some estimates, or if you've done that before and you know what your numbers are, we just need that in your estimated life expectancy. Any other pensions? Pretty straightforward. What are your retirement planning goals? What other expenses do you have in the future? Let's get preparing a sample retirement budget. No one likes working out a budget, but again, going back to making sure retirement work, I have to get that organized. So I'm going to take it off the recording in just a moment to do some Q&A, but I want to just touch on the summary page at the very end here. Let me get to that, pardon me. Start your retirement planning today. Do not delay. Every month, 6 months, years goes by, only makes retirement planning harder, not easier. No question. You want to focus on increasing your assets and reducing liabilities, whether that means paying off your car debt, credit card debt, mortgage, what have you. Let us do a Social Security analysis. And here's another part I want to bring up. Understand your health care and other retirement expenses. This is not a small area for some people, health care costs. Sometimes people just, hey, it's going to be $12,000 per year. Maybe it's $24,000. Let's have a conversation about that. So I'd like to thank everyone for being on the call. I am going to take this off of recording. I'm going to pause this.